fall. I mean, he's got sort of those, just short of the upper class. They're not journeymen, but they're tough outs, but he's beaten all those guys. How does he beat a Manny Pacquiao? Well, you can't equal Manny's experience, but you take into account the amateur background of Ugas, you're going to have to adjust constantly because that's what makes Manny Pacquiao great. Short of the Floyd Mayweather fight, no one has been able to shut him down. Marquez was difficult for him because Marquez was bold enough to punch with him, smart enough, tough enough, and still yet in 4 fights, right? Won one of them. Although you could certainly argue he had cases to have won others on the cards against Manny. Floyd shut Manny down with speed, timing, and I believe the threat of that right hand, which landed early and often and said, look, you cross this line consistently, you're going to have problems. Ugas not that fighter, but he's going to have layers to his game technically in order to set up some of these big punches where every time Manny makes the adjustments, he's going to have a better one. So I could see a first half where maybe they split the rounds, where maybe you have Pacquiao's big combinations, big surges, which he does. Darts in, lands 4 or 5 punches, steps away. Alternated with rounds where Ugas is counterpunching, where he's defensively very strong, where he's picked up the rhythms of Pacquiao and adjusts. The problem is in the second half. Pacquiao is going to show that same stamina he showed against Thurman. He's not going to lose this fight. But if the second half Manny can slow just a bit and Ugas can be more offensive than we think, you got a chance for a good fight. But if it goes the distance, Ugas is going to have to be careful, as anyone else in boxing does against the big star in Las Vegas. You got to really, really wow these judges. I hope he can do it. I hope he can make this fight competitive. But in terms of a pick, it's still Manny Pacquiao. It still is. The experience is just too good. I think Spence was better than Ugas in just about every category. Now, okay, Spence is one of the pound-for-pound best, right? I think Ugas is good enough where this fight is not a major disappointment. Like I said, not a huge event, but a sneaky good-ass fight where the winner is going to be the WBA welterweight champion and have opportunities to do big things afterwards. I think Manny gets it done, though. I think this is sort of I don't know where Manny's career is going to go from here, right? Freddie says he wants to fight another time after becoming president. I think Manny has if he looks great out there, he's got an unlimited amount of big fight options. But we don't know what's going to happen. This could be the last close-up, kiss the baby opportunity for Manny and the great boxing fans. He's on the pay-per-view level. He's in a fight he could and probably should win. And I think he's continuing to add this surprising extra layer to his resume, to his legacy, where we thought it ended with the loss to Mayweather, where, okay, Manny, you're great. You're the only 8-division champion in history. You've dared to be great on a level that we haven't seen since Henry Armstrong 100 years ago. But you didn't beat Floyd in the battle for who's the best of this era. But he's backdooring with these late victories. I mean, we cannot understate enough or overstate anything involving how big that Keith Thurman win was. Keith Thurman was the unbeaten champion 2 years. That was huge. Manny keeps adding these backdoor surprising wins. He's inching closer to areas legacy-wise that I thought he was done inching towards. So that's interesting. As far as who Manny could fight in the future, depending on how busy he wants, look, like I said, redoing a Spence fight. And by the way, I saw Lance Pugmire of The Athletic talk to the same doctor who did the eye surgery on Abner Maris, who of course is a pro fighter and Showtime announcer. He had the same sort of injury that Spence had. They say it looks like 6 months rehab at minimum, could be closer to a year. So, he could fight Spence. God, he could fight Crawford next, or the winner of Crawford and Porter. Or what I think is even more potentially interesting is what about this crop that I always talk about, these 4 kings or 4 princes, as Karen Mulvaney of Showtime's boxing podcast calls them, these young guys right around 135 that are ready to take over the sport. Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Teofimo. Don't forget about my boy Shakur Stevenson is coming. What if one of those guys makes a move to move up 2 weight classes and dare to be great against an aging Pacquiao? Those are fun fights, man. Those are defining fights. That's what old legends who still have it should be doing. You give them the matchup where they have that inherent little bit of advantage because of the experience and the size and the power, but you put them in there against a young, hungry stallion who's going to go for it. I think if Manny wants to stay active, those fights will be available to him. Either way, I think it is worth your time to see Manny this weekend. This is gravy on top of a great career. This is an unexpected close-up, and Ugas is tough enough where, Manny's not going to walk all over him. So this should be fun theater on Saturday night. There's your detailed BC preview. Undercard not offering you a lot, but I love some washed fun, and you're certainly going to get that with former welterweight champions Robert Guerrero and Victor Ortiz. I know if I'm speaking to my boxing hardcores here, they know how sloppy this fight is and how much I want to see it. Outside of that, it's really just 2 old welterweights. So enjoy. Hopefully someone throws a pizza at VO. Hopefully Coach Haas takes them out. All right. Keep it rolling right here. Wow. Sweating hot in here. Oh, God. I wanted to shout out Galwan Durante, who's watching this breakdown from the Philippines in the live chat there. Shout out to you, bro. We got people all over this world. I appreciate it. Love you. Love what we're doing. Let's get some merch on you. International shipping, okay? 2.0 coming your way. Last night was the PFL 8 semifinal round at women's lightweight and heavyweight. And I got to shout out the PFL again. They continue to win me over there. It was from the Hard Rock Seminole Hotel there in South Florida. And it was obviously all about Kayla Harrison for the most part. And I think that even though we had a disappointing development heading into this card when Larissa Pacheco of Brazil, who was the #1 seed at women's lightweight, based upon how dominant she had been with 2 early knockouts during this regular season, she unfortunately missed weight badly, and was pulled from her semifinal bout. Why does that matter a lot? Because if you were looking at the 4 fighters in this at 155, narrative-wise, it was Kayla and everybody else. No question about it, right? Kayla's dominant. But I think we were holding out against hope that you want to see her in the final against somebody who has a path to victory, a shot. I know that you can cynically argue, hey, BC, you're telling us every week that Kayla's better this year than she's ever been. If she already beat Pacheco twice, including a 5-round, dominant decision in 2 years ago, the last time the PFL had a tournament when they met in the championship, how is she going to, win? Well, the 26-year-old's got pop, man, and I thought she also has improved since then. And she is the only person really pushing Kayla and going the distance in these fights, having lost 2 decisions against her. Unfortunately, Pacheco's out of the tournament. So the narrative now is not just that Kayla looks on her way to win, but that, like we talked about Wednesday, will she be back? Should she be back? We'll get to that in a second. What we did see in the main event was Kayla Harrison going in there against 6-foot-tall from City Kickboxing in New Zealand, although very short on professional experience, Jenna Fabian. And as usual, it just wasn't a fight. It was a steamroll. It was 4 minutes and 1 second of one-way traffic. How dominant? They show those stats on the screen that basically show you how many times Kayla has taken a breath in the last hour. She outstruck Jenna Fabian 66-0 in this fight. Jenna Fabian was 0 for 1 in this fight in strikes. It was Kayla walking her to the fence, methodically setting up the kill, taking her down, getting to full mount, and then just battering her into essentially submission. TKO round 1, it was as dominant as anything we'd seen from Kayla this year. It was right on par with everything. Maybe she's had quicker finishes this year, but she methodically took her out. Now, the story here is, talk about my BDE. Kayla has stepped up her trash talk pro wrestling promo game where she comes out there and she's got swag. And in the post-fight interview, her quotes were great. Now, did she deliver them in kind of a corny pro wrestling voice? Yes, but I do like the BDE she's showing, if you will, even though that's an awful reference in this case. Maybe it helps that she's got Dan Lambert there at ATT, as an influence. Dan Lambert doing great work, by the way, in AEW right now as a heel manager, bringing in the ATT stable. He did the same thing in Impact Wrestling a few years ago. But here's Kayla's quote afterwards. Everyone keeps saying, how do you solve the Kayla Harrison puzzle? Spoiler alert, there is no frickin' puzzle. I put you on your back and I mess you up. And in response to the idea that Fabian coming in at 6 feet tall with the CKB background, we saw the videos from Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski shouting her out. This is what Kayla said. You kept talking about scientists. Oh, the scientists at City Kickboxing. Izzy couldn't even stop my takedowns. That was pretty humorous, all right? That was pretty good. Can we, Gaff and Manish, can we throw to that tweet that Kayla's manager put up there, the manager of the Stars, Ali Abdelaziz, who basically uttered the same reference and was like, I truly believe Kayla can beat Amanda, Cyborg, even Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling, good Lord, Ali. All same time, no disrespecting nobody. Maybe you're disrespecting grammar right there, Ali, but I love you just the same, brother. Interesting here. I think this is the topic, the debate of where should she go next. Okay, where's she going next? October 27th, I believe, is the date where PFL has its championship final round, all on the same card, by the way, 6 championship bouts. I do like the way that this unique concept with the regular season and playoffs ends with one big night and all the championships. Well, here's who Kayla is going to fight. In the other semifinal last night, it was Taylor Guardado, who got a close split decision win over replacement Mariana Moraes, who filled in last minute for Pacheco. Let's be honest. Neither Guardado or Moraes are anywhere close to Kayla's level. And I think Guardado's got a good story. They had the camera there with her husband and son. And, you know, she was 9-1 as an amateur and went away to start a family and came back. She just barely beat Marais. I didn't even actually think she did. It was a gutsy performance, but it's like Kayla looks like not only professional, right? Black belt MMA. She looks next level. This looked like JV, and it did. So it's not about what's next. What's next is Kayla's going to go out there and steamroll Guardado and win the $1 million. Really, the question is the debate we had Wednesday based on the comments that Kayla had given to MMA Mania. Shout out to my boy Shaq Majori, doing great work over there. She gave that interview to a lot of people and said, you know, they're going to have to pay me life-changing money to keep me. And I think you saw her cut those promos afterwards, and you ask yourself, is there anything PFL can do? Which, you know, they've done a good job. They've kept her financially solid by giving her now 2 seasons of opportunity to win the $1 million prize at the end. And to Kayla, she's a favorite. She's going to be a big favorite to do it a second time when they meet in October, to her credit. But I think they've also given her a really strong platform by getting the ESPN deal. I think you got to ask yourself, you know, is it over? Is this the final run for her? Or what can they do? I think Kayla to UFC is inevitable. The question is it next? Does it have to be next? Chris Cyborg, we know, is interested in big fights, whether it's MMA, boxing, movies, pro wrestling. I mean, she just wants to do big stuff, and I give Cyborg that credit. She put out a tweet that basically said, hey, everybody, I can make 155, all right? I can do that. I think this is the fight to make next. Does that mean we make it in Bellator, though? I think the PFL's best option in keeping Kayla Harrison happy in order to keep her is this. You're going to have to pay her. You're going to have to pay her a lot. So when she calls you out for life-changing money, you're going to have to do that, okay? They do have big-time celebrity sponsors. They got a pretty strong TV deal with ESPN, although I believe it's up next year, and we'll see if they can parlay that into more. I think you get one more contract out of her. You pay her well, but part of that contract says, we're going to call up Uncle Scott over there at Bellator, a guy who in the past has been willing to do big things. He brought in Fedor to Strikeforce and was willing to co-promote with M1 Global when UFC was not willing to deal with Vadummy, as Dana would call Finkelstein there. I think you have to go to Coker, who also brought Caldwell to Japan to fight Horiguchi and crossed over with Rizin there. Can we create some type of fight series? And we'll make it a big deal, right? Where it's Kayla versus Cyborg. Okay, Amanda Nunes is not involved in this, but we can still market it as Cyborg's the most decorated champion in women's MMA history, which she is. I put Nunes just above her, just slightly above her in the GOAT rankings because they did meet head-to-head when both still had it. And Amanda, she sent her. She sent her down there. She got rid of her, moved up in weight to do it too. So I'm going to give Amanda that credit. But for now, if you're Coker and Company, you can sell this as the GOAT against the woman in Harrison who's telling everybody, I'm going to be the GOAT. I'm going to be the greatest of all time. What if you could sign that up for something we don't see too often, which is a 2 or 3 fight series? We're starting to see that a little more in boxing where, Eddie Hearn, the promoter of Anthony Joshua, is saying, okay, we want to do Joshua Wilder or back when that was more of a prominent matchup, or now Joshua Fury. Let's do a 2-fight deal. We just saw that with Wilder and Fury. They did the first one, then they created a new contract, which was a second one with the option of a third one. What if you did a cross-promotional 2-fight deal? Either it could be a 2-promotion pay-per-view, or maybe you say, we'll do one time in your backyard on Showtime with Bellator, or maybe on CBS with Bellator for all we know, and we'll do the other one on ESPN or wherever PFL's TV deal is. Maybe in the short term, that's the best way to keep Kayla, to keep her happy, give her a reload of fighters, though, for the next season, which she's going to have. Obviously, we got a big problem here, whether Kayla goes to Bellator next, or stays in PFL, or goes to UFC, or goes to ONE, or wherever. The problem is you're just not going to find people on her level, particularly in these weight divisions. 155, I think PFL is the only one employing a prominent group. And as we're seeing with these fighters, no huge disrespect to Jetta Fabian or Taylor Guardado, they just don't have the experience. They're just not of that ilk. If Kayla cuts down to 145, where there is a bigger pool, and she proved in that Invicta one-off that she can do it, still, look at UFC. There's beyond Nunes, there's not a lot of options out there. So unless you take some big name bantamweights like a Holly Holm, those type, and blow them up for big opportunities, which UFC could do, and UFC could make a lot of money with Kayla, as she could the same, which echoed her comments to Dana that Aaron Bronstetter told us about on Wednesday. I think if you're PFL, you have to spend that money. You have to work out that deal with Cyborg in some form. And you're going to have to kind of reload for the next season. Maybe it's getting a Megan Anderson, right, who got cut by the UFC. Maybe it's going out there and finding anyone we can who's got a little bit of a name and can give a little bit of a challenge. And maybe telling Kayla, if we pay you more, can you come down to 145 so we have a bigger pool of people to be able to get opponents for you? That might be the move right there, at the end of the day. But let's give Kayla all the credit. She deserves it. She's... her backstory, which we all know, adopting her siblings' children is great, but to see even the further, deeper videos that they played about, the abuse she's had in her life and a lot of the family issues, she's somebody who's taken the crap, the shit in her life, which, we all deal with in our, in various ways and made it a positive. And it's really hard not to cheer for her. She's an ambassador in a lot of ways of this women's game and the sport in general. And, I wish her well. So we'll check her out against Taylor Gardado. Bet the under, folks. The other piece of business they had were the semifinals on the heavyweight round on Thursday. And maybe I spoke in air, right? With so much BDE that sometimes just words come out. That's why we have dead wrong segments on Friday. I spoke in error on Wednesday and said, I don't think this heavyweight division's got anything for me in PFL. I was interested in seeing Verdum until he had to pull out there. I forgot about Bruno Capoloza, and I want to give him his shout out. He kind of looks like poor man's Junior Dos Santos in a way, and he's had some big moments and big knockouts this season, and I thought his knockout of Jamel Jones, second round TKO on Thursday night was impressive, and he's got the big power, but it was the strategic way in which he set it up. It was the leg strike really that forced Jones into early peril, switching stances, not necessarily like Khabib against Gaethje, although I think we all remember that Justin was one more kick away from putting the great champ in peril. But that impacted the fight. But, Capoloza didn't go, empty his wad trying to get him out of there. He was strategic in how he did it. This was a big win. I think he's got to be the favorite heading in there against Ante Delija, who had a unanimous decision win over Denis Goitsov. It was a bit sloppy. It was grinding. But I thought Delija, Delia, am I pronouncing that correctly? I thought he was rightful. 29-28 across the board. I think he had done enough. Not overly impressive, but he's got Mirko Cro Cop in his corner. Good little story there. You got to like Capoloza. He's a puncher. He's smart. There's a lot to like here. When we talk about, AB said it on Wednesday, PFL starting to do what Bellator is doing in some divisions. They're starting to mount up a couple guys where you're like, I know we haven't seen them worldwide, but right now these guys could be top 10 players in the UFC. Magomed Karamov is one of those guys. I think Bruno Capoloza is showing you that there's the bright potential there. So that was a very strong win against a tough guy in Jones who came ready to fight. And God, that leg strike, whew, that was crippling. So that's what we saw on Thursday night. That will continue in October. Gonna have that championship round with all the divisions there. Should be fun. See if Ray Cooper III can come back there and redeem himself against Magomed Karamov. I think that's the fight to watch right now in these PFL playoffs. Indeed. All right, let's keep that crap going. Saturday night, UFC Fight Night. Las Vegas. You saw that I talked to Jared Cannonier earlier this week. If you missed that, youtube.com/Morning Combat. Had some fun little sound bites. Had some fun with him. Talked a lot of weird stuff. Power crystals. Controversial comments. Why he's so outspoken. Psychedelics, brother. Okay. BC will take you there. I'll take you there, okay? Check that interview out. Enjoy it. As it pertains to the fight, though, I love this main event. Not a overly deep card. In some ways, they knew they were up against Pacquiao Spence. Put out a good main event, couple fights to watch. But this is legitimate middleweight title picture positioning here for the winner. And it was supposed to be, of course, Cannonier, I believe, against Paulo Costa. And this is an opportunistic, as always, Kelvin Gastelum sliding in. It's obviously a big risk. Gastelum's lost 4 or 5. We've talked about that narrative. It's been all against elite. He's still not 30 years old, but, you suffer 6 losses or whatever. You get to that run. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's against, Uber drivers. Those losses look bad. That really puts the ante here on Gastelum, I think, needing a win big time. Now, having watched his interviews and comments, he did something which he thought was smarter this time. He accepted the late-minute opportunity, big reward, right? Big risk. He took it where they gave him more time, though, 10 weeks for a camp, unlike some of the other ones he's accepted. But I think the difference in what could win him is he can't play into the narrative here. And the narrative, when you look at this matchup, is, good God, there's going to be fireworks. These guys bang. I love when you put two guys in there that are potentially sluggers, that have a history of slugging and making great fights. Let's go see who's the tougher guy. We all want Paulo Costa versus Yoel Romero every single time out, right? We all want to make sweet vinyl intercourse with fights like that. I want it to happen on Saturday night. I think if that happens, though, Gastelum's going to lose again. Because that's the game plan that best fits Jared Cannonier. And I don't think that takes into account the best of what Kelvin Gastelum brings to the game. So let's check out the Caesar Sportsbook. Your odds at the moment, minus 155 for the 37-year-old Cannonier, who saved for that loss to Robert Whittaker, had been on that career redefining win streak to sort of, he figured out how to be elite here. Gastelum plus 130. I think there's a lot to like with Gastelum as an underdog here. And let me say first that I'm a Gastelum guy. We know this. We know how much I love that Adesanya fight. It's not that it's the only great fight I've been in the building for, but there was just something special in that fight and that night. I didn't even want to be at that card. I had been, that week, I was on the road in LA recording a PBC face-to-face Fox boxing interview show. I took a plane ride to Atlantic City, hosted the Showtime weigh-ins that morning for Clarissa Shields. Took a red-eye flight, went right to there as soon as the weigh-in's over, got on a plane, headed to Atlanta. It was one of those batshit crazy weeks. I was exhausted. I had no video support there. It was just your boy BC wearing a weird orange pullover jacket sitting in the John Morgan chair. And it effed around and got a triple-double, which was two of the best fights in UFC history back-to-back. Gastelum Adesanya, Max versus Dustin. Holy crap, what a night. What I learned in that night, Gastelum just needs something, just needs to tweak it a little bit more because it's in there. Not just the hunger to be great, but the flashes of brilliance that we originally saw as a welterweight, that we've seen at times as a middleweight. He's quick. He knows how to box. He's explosive with that left hand. He's going to wrestle. He's got to put the game plan together, though. I think Aaron Bronstetter nailed it on Wednesday when he essentially alluded to the idea that Gastelum plays up or down, not just the level of his opponents, but the style, right? If a Darren Till is setting a tone with a more strategic style, he's going to follow and play that. And it's hard to follow a guy at his strength. I think the best thing he did in that Adesanya fight to make it such a great fight was he forced Adesanya off script. Adesanya's not just going to stand there in kickbox and one shot you and play with his food and have fun. Gastelum worked in the explosive rushes because he had to, because he was going to get picked apart if he didn't. And I think he's going to have to look at what Cannonier brings to the table and the threat of the knockout and be like, I've got to be smarter. I've got to be versatile. I've got to disguise what I do. And I have to have the equal threat of wrestling and the ability to box and the ability to get him out of there. And I think hear him talking about the effectiveness of meeting with Henry Cejudo during training camp, picking his brain, letting Cejudo help Gastelum plan out workout strategies, mindsets, fight strategies, and really, of a great champion, somebody who's really smart and knows what they're doing. If you look at who Henry Cejudo became, he had that wrestling background, but the fighter that he became in those big wins leading up to his, sudden retirement, here's a guy who figured out how to balance everything perfectly. I'm not saying meeting with Triple Cringe there, once or twice or a few times in a training camp can completely change a guy. And I don't want to fall victim to that typical pre-fight interview where someone's like, nah, man, best training camp ever. I feel great. This is going to be different. But something did sound different because of something I think Gastelum said that triggered me, where he said in the past, I'm just reacting to what's happening in fights. I'm not necessarily implementing a strategy and a game plan. And I think when Gastelum does that, he can still have big moments, but it's more of what I said before. You're playing too much toward the style of the other person and reacting to them without attempting to implement what you do best and setting your own traps and trying. I think if he comes out here with the idea that I'm not afraid if this goes 5 rounds and I'm going to have to box this guy, I'm going to have to take him down at times, and I'm going to have to constantly keep him guessing. Skill for skill is a fight Gastelum can win. That's why the odds are close. And I know that he's one of those guys that to keep being me in a chair like this and saying, don't give up on Gastelum yet. It's still in there. You gotta, there's 9 lives, right? It's not Adrian Broner level 9 lives where you're like, I know he's lost all those, but dude, if he could just put it together, man, he could still be that guy. I still feel that with Gastelum. It's hard to be that guy. It's hard to stand on that mountain and wave that flag when the losses pile up. But I think Cannonier's the right opponent where if you implement that game plan and you keep him guessing, you're going to have to avoid the power and you're going to have to stand in and trade in big moments. I think Gastelum can win this fight. I like his chances a lot. And I like this main event a lot. And I think, Bronstetter was maybe a little bit more on Wednesday open to the idea that if somebody gets a big win in this fight, maybe they could be in line next after hopefully we see Adesanya Whitaker too. And I know it's looking like 2022 if you read the reports of COVID-wise when we could see that. And if that gets extended, whoever wins this fight's probably going to have to win another one anyway. But I don't think it's that quick to the top. But, this is career saving for Gastelum. Because if Gastelum loses here, that's 5 out of 6. We're done. We're done. I thought we were done after. I thought we were done after Whitaker, right? I was ready to give you that narrative of it's now or never. And he still kind of bought himself time because he fought really good. And it's Robert Whitaker. Kind of done now, though. You can't keep doing that, right? Can't keep apologizing and saying, here's flowers and a bracelet. I'm not going to hit you anymore. You can't do that, okay? 2021, all right? Please. Let me crack open the seltzer here. A lot of people think, BC, what are you getting drunk? What are you getting high each episode? No, bro. Okay, I got a cup of Joe and the MK mug. Okay, I got the water every episode. Okay, and I got the seltzer. Okay, today in the Lex Luger. Shout out to the great NWA US champion, the Lex Express himself. Okay. All right, you're going to have to hose me down after this. I'm going to be sweaty as balls. So, I think there's still time. With all that said, Cannonier could still knock him out in round 1. So we'll see. Good theater just the same on this one. We talked about it on Wednesday. I like this co-main event a lot. Clay Guida's got something left, a little bit left. But what he has left does play into what Mark O. Madsen still needs to show us fairly well. And that's through 2 UFC fights. We know that Madsen at 36 is a wrestling stud, and the suplexes he's shown and the ability to just maul you is great. But Austin Hubbard in the 3rd round of the last Madsen fight did show you that if you can withstand that without getting finished and you keep coming, brother, you might be able to pull on that gas tank of Madsen a little bit. And I think the jumping knee from Hubbard really opened Madsen's eyes and suddenly like, oh, is he in peril? Is this falling apart? Well, to Madsen's credit, he won that. But I think what Guida brings to the table, maybe AB's a little stronger to this idea than I was, but the pressure, the experience, the wrestling, where he's not going to get manhandled, or will he by Madsen? We'll have to see that if the fight does go to the ground. But the ability for that high motor to basically say, you're going to have to beat a guy, and you're going to have to beat me, meaning, if I can stuff your takedowns here and there, you're going to have to beat me on the feet. You're going to have to show me striking that you haven't up to this point. I think that's going to be the big key in us finding out in this potential short window of Mark Madsen, can he adjust from that great wrestling background and be a legitimate, player and title contender here in the UFC? This is one of those important fights for us to find it out. And you look at the Caesars odds, plus 130 for Guida, minus 155 for Madsen. I can definitely talk myself into the idea that Guida, even at 39, can push him there, can make it hard. He beat an old Michael Johnson his last time out. Lost 3 of 4 before that, and the only win was BJ Penn. So, come on, we know the level where he's at. I do think, though, if Madsen is not a train wreck, is not a failed crossover experiment like a Gokhan Saki became, right? As long as Madsen can weather this and show us some more striking than he did the last time out. I love watching his journey because it's still real to me, damn it, that in 2021 we can have fighters who are still so single-minded. It's a throwback, and one-dimensional to a great. It's a throwback to the original UFC when it's like, could a boxer beat a Josan karate expert? You're like, what the hell's Josan karate, right? And, that's the original experiment, right? I still like when you get the Damian Mayas, or you get even a Brock Lesnar when he came over and it's all wrestling or nothing. And you get, crossover boxers, boxing background guys. I still like that. So Madsen's an interesting watch in that regard. Does he end up getting there? Does he end up being a title contender? I think there's more reasons to doubt than support, but this is a showcase opportunity in a big spot to potentially wow us. So let's see what he's got. Heavyweights Chase Sherman and Parker Porter are going to bang. It's going to be sloppy, too. They've been talking trash. Porter's from Hartford, so shout out to Connecticut. The king of Connecticut, BC Apathy over here. Connecticut doesn't get a lot of love in the fight game, even though we got Mike Kimbrell from Bellator. There's another Bellator dude from Waterbury on the undercard, Fabio Aguilar, who's going to be there. Connecticut's not known for fighters in the cage or the ring, but in life, we got a lot of them, okay? Come to my factory town. All right? Spend one day at Factory Town MMA. Roll on those mats. All right? Thank you. It's not just a cut-through state from New York to Boston. It's not just high taxes and gasoline prices. Okay? It's not just the illusion that everybody here is rich and lives in Greenwich. No. Okay? Come to the armpit. Come to the Naugatuck Valley. All right? Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how we come back from that. Another buried fight on this UFC card, which has some interesting implications in the flyweight division, is Alexandre Pantoja, Brandon Royval. Both had losses of late against the true elite, although Pantoja's coming off a win. And I think this is definitely one to watch where you know where we're at. Brandon Moreno just won the title from Figueiredo. Figgy's mad that he's not getting the initial rematch because he gave the initial rematch to Moreno. Well, the UFC kind of calls these shots, don't they, brah? All right. I love you, Figgy, but you're not sitting there telling the UFC who can and won't fight against you. I understand that he wants it, but he got served. He got solved. You got to get back in line, bro. So what that means is I think it's open here. I like Askarov. I think he should be the next title contender. They're probably going to make him win another one first. The winner of this one, if they can get a big win, could be right back in there. And this flyweight division is so fun in the aftermath of DJ. And, you can't hold it against Mighty Mouse. God, they did what he asked him to. Okay, well, they did ask him to move tickets and ratings, and he couldn't do that. But he found new ways to beat everybody over and over again. But it was a Klitschko-like run of dominance where people stopped caring. Cejudo may have saved this division, and now we care again. So, thank you, Henry. Cringe as shit, but thank you. Thank you very much. You may be interested in other fights on this undercard, but, is it moving me? I like Brian Kelleher. I like Boom. All right. Friend of the show, friend of the program, former MMA Beat attendee, analyst. B. Malecki's back as well. Some people think she's sneaky, but we don't really talk about that on this show, okay? We all like our jobs a lot. All right. Let's keep the ball rolling there. It should be a good card. Saturday night, going to fall under the buzz of Pacquiao to a good degree, but I definitely want to check out that main event. Tonight, we got more MMA. It's Bellator 265, showtime 9 p.m. Eastern. Little fun little graphic right there. Undercard 6 p.m. Pacific on the social channels of Showtime, Bellator, Pluto TV, a couple other places you can watch it. Heavyweights in the main event. It's guys we know. It's a fun matchup on paper. Czech Congo is 46 freaking years old. And I know you want to go, God darn, Czech Congo, dude. I've been watching that dude in the UFC since feels like 2003, right? And you might be right. But I think what Congo's done under the radar is not get old and washed. He's 12-3 since coming to Bellator in 2013. I mean, that's pretty impressive, you know? I mean, the Bellator heavyweight division isn't typically overloading during that run with ridiculous names, but he has been consistent. He doesn't get knocked out. He manages space so well. He's efficient. He's smart. He's still in great shape. And surprisingly enough, this fight isn't just, hey, let's headline a card with two legends with 62 combined wins, and they fought and lost or beat everybody. And, Sergey Karatanov was in the damn Strike Force Grand Prix, and we remember him from Pride. I mean, he's got wins over Overeem, Arlovsky, Verdum. It's not just like, hey, maybe these two old guys can knock him out. And I think Karatanov just turned 41 on Wednesday. The winner of this bout has a legitimate say in the title picture. And I think that's because, particularly for Congo, 2019, you see the pictures, he did get in there against Ryan Bader for this heavyweight championship, and it was the unfortunate ending of the no contest. And some people blame Congo, but, whatever. He thought he should have got an immediate rematch. He didn't. Bader went off to the light heavyweight World Grand Prix, where he is right now. Valentin Moldavsky in the interim has since won the interim title over Timothy Johnson, who beat Czech Congo. So Congo had that second chance to be right back in there. He lost a very tough split decision to Johnson. It was in Paris. It was supposed to be this, homecoming thing. It didn't happen. But if Czech Congo gets a win here over Sergey Karatanov, especially if Bader stays on in this tournament and advances and keeps winning at light heavyweight, I think Congo could be next for Valentin Moldavsky. I think that's probably the fight to make. So there's a lot at play here. And Karatanov is not done and washed. I don't know if anyone's been following him as close as they normally do, but he's 8-1 in his last 11. There's 2 no contests in there, but 8-1. He went to professional boxing over the last year, had 2 knockout wins there. He's still thumping. So, it's interesting in that regard. I'm going to check it out tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. Be providing live coverage on CBS Sports. Recap. We'll have analysis on HQ afterwards. All that good stuff. Unfortunately for this card, Bellator 265, we will not be getting the co-main event, which really was the fight of the night. It was the fight to see with featherweight title positioning at stake. You know how much I love Adam Boric, Rashad's boy from down there in Sanford MMA, who has rebounded fairly nicely from that loss early on in the Featherweight World Grand Prix and does look to be a title contender long form and a great submission guy, and he's long and he's really adding a lot to his game. He's from Hungary. He's also got a hunger. Okay, I mean, it's bad. It's bad. I know. I'm a dad. I'm 43. There's dad jokes, right? Okay. I just watched The Rock tell dad jokes in that movie. Jungle Book, Jungle Cruise. Hey, you're. I once dated a cross-eyed woman, but I always thought she was seeing people on the side. Yeah, okay, it's a dad joke. I get it. All right, what do you call? All right, thank you. Sorry, may have just had a seizure. Maybe just had a dad seizure right there. Back on course here. Unfortunately, J.J. Wilson, the 24-year-old from New Zealand, who is a rising name in this division and has put together some very impressive wins. He just can't put together consistency on the scale. Missed weight by 4 pounds. Yeah, so the problem is that's 3 out of his last 4 fights that he missed weight, and that's an eye-opener in a big way. And he's going to have to go back to the table and really figure out, along with Bellator matchmakers, is it time to move up? Is it time to go up there to the 155 at lightweight? Because this was an opportunity, especially if you look great, to get a shot at the world title. And here at featherweight at 145, we just, of course, wrapped up, AJ McKee winning the Grand Prix over Pitbull, and there's going to be some big opportunities here. So this was a big card, considering, look, everybody but McKee is coming off a loss in that tournament, right? For the most part, that this was a big opportunity, and J.J. Wilson couldn't answer that bell. And I think he's a fun, young fighter with a lot of potential. Still liked the chances there of Boric against him. I'm high on Boric, but you see in the victory J.J. had over Carvalho. I mean, this guy's a player. This guy's a fighter. That's not going to happen. We will see, though, a co-main event in which Luke's guy, all right, the pride of South Dakota, Logan Storley, he's back. He was supposed to fight, of course, back when that card at the Mohegan Sun, in which us here in Morning Combat were on the ground. We interviewed him. We asked him how much he cleaned up in Roslyn, South Dakota on Friday nights. I'm going to guess a lot. Heftily. He's back in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. This is the second time he's fighting in his home state under the Bellator banner. He got bumped up to the co-main. He's facing Dante Shiro, who is making his Bellator debut. Had a 2-fight losing skid, bounced back with 2-fight winning streak. He's been on sort of the lower regional levels, but this is a big step up in his first one. You have to believe this sets a kind of a stage, though, for Storley to come back at an important time in the welterweight division because of the big changeover with Yaroslav Amosov going in there and dethroning Douglas Lima. We all remember Logan Storley's lone pro loss in there against Amosov. 3 rounds of wrestling and transitions. I mean, just a great fight. Storley showed up and showed out, and he came up just short in that one. You now can start, he comes out here and looks good here against Shiro. You can start to build the narrative to get him back into there. The odds tell you, though, how this fight should end. Minus 3,500 is Storley, the hometown boy, as your favorite. Should be interesting to watch. Storley has a bright future, man. Not just the wrestling, the 4-time NCAA champion at Minnesota. He's starting to put together the striking. He seems to have a good understanding and demeanor, and those little intangibles you pick up in interviewing a guy. Is this guy for real? But Amosov is eventually going to have a tough time on his hands in this rematch. It's going to be a very good fight. I hope they fight 3 times for all I care. All right, there you go. I wanted to close out the regular portion of this Morning Combat 5 topic rundown in this abnormal edition today, as we're going to transition eventually to this BC live chat. I mean, what the hell is this going to look like, right? I mean, I could lose my job, right? I mean, this is wild, right? I hold this microphone like a damn grudge, okay? Let's do that. Let's hit a couple of quick hitters, though, in the news cycle. Great news out of boxing. Yes, Canelo Alvarez confirmed the reports on his Instagram yesterday. The fight that was supposed to take place September 18th, Mexican Independence Day weekend, for all 4 super middleweight titles against Caleb Plant. We know they went to the negotiation table. There was some hiccups. Canelo wanted the assurance that if Plant fell out